The Eldar race is besieged from all sides. Were it not so, they would not be so few in number now. They only sacrifice their lives in battle when there is no other way out, and if it will cost the enemy dearly. Young Eldar, in their naivety, often believe that with zeal in their hearts and burning enthusiasm, they will be able to rebuild the Empire to its former glory. But the truth is that their fragmented civilization is mired in a struggle for survival. Because of this bitter but inevitable truth, more and more Eldar each year take up the path of war, leaving behind their former disgusting concerns in favor of mastering the martial arts of Cain. And the bloody-handed god can offer them many different ways of waging war. Such is the dark side of the Elder soul, that at one point or another in their lives, the overwhelming majority of Eldar take up the warrior path, which teaches the craft of death and destruction. Centuries ago, the Phoenix Lords taught the art of war to both men and women, as a result of which warriors are drawn from both genders. Like many other intricate paths, the path of war has several offshoots. They are called the aspect warriors, and each reflects a specific facet of the war god Cain. The aspects differ markedly in combat technique, equipment and abilities, playing specific roles on the battlefield. Every aspect has at least one shrine aboard a craft world, where those walking the warrior path practice their skill, a sanctuary wholly dedicated to perfecting the techniques of killing. There, novices are taught to perform specific tasks in combat, are given unique garb, a ritual combat suit, and distinctive weapons. Thus fire dragons receive fusion guns, while crimson hunters are entrusted with Nightshade Interceptor. Through endless exercises, they hone their bodies and minds until they fully feel the aspect of Cain reflected by their shrine. The essence of the path of the warrior is the idea of ritual masks. The Eldari, standing on an evolutionary step above other races, experience more intense feelings than humans, Tau, or orcs. This allows them to indulge in benevolent feelings, such as love, with an unimaginable intensity, but it also intensifies emotions such as anger, fear, or grief. The impact of killing is also intensified. While humans can simply kill others without much regret or shame, Eldari, doing the same, risk their souls, as this may attract the sinister gaze of Slaanesh. The pleasure-seeking Comorites gladly bring death, but the inhabitants of the craftworlds prefer to shield their souls from killings, and therefore don ritual masks before battle. The ritual masks is as much a metaphysical concept as it is a material object. When aspect warriors gather for battle, they ritually don their ritual masks, adopting a different persona, ready to willingly shed blood and temporarily abandon the identity that exists outside the shrine. They give in to the wild instincts lurking in the heart of every Eldari, and prepare to kill in the name of the bloody-handed god. Through this, when aspect warriors mercilessly deal with the enemy, it is another personality that risks attracting the attention of she who thirst, which, along with their ritual masks, they remove after the battle, and memories of recent bloodshed turn into vague images from dreams. This allows them over time to transition to different paths without the traumas left by cruel battles and atrocities committed. Removing the ceremonial masks and equipment, aspect warriors, despite their formidable power, live peacefully in their native craft world. In each shrines, only their keepers, the exarchs, living embodiments of the aspects of Cain, have a permanent abode. They are considered the supreme priests of the blood-handed god and confessors of his religion, and only those Eldar who become utterly lost on the path of war may become them. This happens rarely, but when it does, there is no turning back. Frequent excitement from battle is to blame. The feeling is so powerful it can leave an indelible mark on the psyche. When an aspect warrior can no longer separate from their personality the image of a killer, they are forever trapped, and their kin experience a mix of fear and awe towards them. An exarch wears an advanced version of the ceremonial aspect armor and enhances their already remarkable abilities through the secret equipment and carrying the soul stones of all the previous exarchs who owned their armor. Each exarch assumes a sacred name associated with their war gear, and their spirit merges with the souls of the Eldar who have used that suit since the founding of the shrine. The presence of a common cauldron of souls with raw psychic energy gives the armor and the warrior, as they are indivisible, their supernatural strength. Thus, an aspect warrior who becomes an exarch is reborn as a living legend, the heroic ideal of that aspect. The founders of the aspect shrines, also known as the Phoenix Lords, elevated the mysterious form of this kind of immortality to the highest degree, being essentially living armor with a bound soul, without a physical body. After their death, their battlesuits lie empty, collecting dust for centuries, until one day they are found by exarchs worthy of wearing them. By donning the sacred armor, an exarch becomes part of a whole spiritual entity, and the Phoenix Lord is reborn from the ashes to lead the armies of the Eldar race. Some aspects, such as the slicing orbs of Xandros, are found only in a certain artificial world, while others are widespread. The most celebrated and authoritative are the dire avengers, howling banshees, striking scorpions, fire dragons, swooping hawks, and dark reapers. Among the lesser-known or even rare aspects are the shining spears and warp spiders, crimson hunters, and ebon talons, whose creators were never among the Asuryani, and yet their legacy still echoes through the ages. In battle, each squad plays the part assigned to it with the virtuosity of a master, combining their talents with the skills of other squads of the same shrine. If the warriors of Eldar forces differ in the colour of faceplates and stripes on the wings of their jetpacks, the aspect warriors pay no attention to such features. Each aspect shrine has its traditions in heraldry and equipment, many of which date back to the times of the founding of the first such communities. As a result, warriors from different shrines of the dire avengers slightly differ from each other, but it's still evident that they belong to one aspect. Sometimes the difference is so minimal that it consists in slight changes in the shape, size and style of the aspect warrior rune, or in a different colour of plumage. In other cases, the differences turn out to be fundamental, exemplified by the howling banshees of the Ebon Witch Shrine clad in black armour. No matter what enemy threatens the Eldar race, be it vast hordes or mighty war machines, among the warriors of the craft worlds, there will always be those whose skills and weaponry allow them to cope. Combined with the gift of foresight of the seers and the strategic genius of the autarchs who lead the troops into battle, even a small strike force can overcome the enemy without much fear of countermeasures. Ideal for the Asuryani is to eliminate the enemy without any losses, for the forces opposing them are immeasurably great, while the Eldars are insignificant, and they cannot afford to thoughtlessly squander soldiers like primitive races. As a consequence, any warrior fallen in battle is a sacrifice that was simply unavoidable, which undoubtedly cost the enemy dearly. For an Eldar's life, in comparison with those of other civilizations, is invaluable. The Phoenix Lords are the ancient exarchs who founded each one of the Asuryani warrior shrines and became the embodiment of a certain aspect of the war god Cain. In some ways they can be considered immortal because when one of them dies, another Eldar dons his battle gear and fully absorbs his consciousness. Thus the Phoenix Lord comes into the world again, reminiscent of the Eldar's reincarnation before the fall. Inside the armour of each Phoenix Lord is a spirit stone, containing a shard of the essence of all who ever wore them. And yet, it does not matter how many bearers these ancient armours have had. The essence of the Phoenix Lord remains unchanged, and the mind of the current bearer is governed by the dominant personality of the first and greatest incarnation of that particular aspect. The legendary progenitors of aspects, trained by Asumen on the planet of Asur, soon after the fall, are called Asuria. One version of the Eldar mythic cycle tells of how they fled from the destruction of the Azure Shrine when one of them, known as the Fallen Phoenix, turned against the others. Although Ara, the father of the Scorpions, is commonly considered the Fallen Phoenix, another version exists in the artificial world of Kayla. Considering Kayla's history and the power of its aspect warriors, it seems very strange that there are no records of the progenitors of the warp spiders, and this has led some to speculate about its connection with the Fallen Phoenix. An intriguing local legend speaks of the so-called Leucosidae, a wraith spider that appears to be an unorthodox reinterpretation of the concept of Asuria. In Kaelorian folklore, it's concluded that Leucosidae was none other than the Fallen Phoenix. Although such a hypothesis has never been directly proclaimed or recorded, Throughout the millennia, each of the Phoenix Lords has disappeared for a period lasting centuries or even more before reappearing unexpectedly. The Dire Avengers, first among the aspect warriors of Asuryan. They embody the endless thirst of the god of war to avenge a galaxy filled with grief and suffering, and thus they are as merciless to their enemies as they are infinitely devoted to their people. Those chosen as targets by these aspect warriors perish painfully. Yet the death of their foes is always a spectacle, for no one wields the shuriken catapult as they do, considering the throwing of sharp discs, the principle of Cain's bloody martial arts. In war, they unleash entire cutting hurricanes, killing by the thousands with cuts before the enemy has a chance to scream. Despite the terrifying form in which they bring destruction, Dire Avengers are called exemplary, noble warriors, which speaks to how merciless the artificial worlds can be when someone provokes their wrath. The aspect of the Dire Avenger is the most widespread and originates from Asumen, the first Phoenix Lord. His followers are famous for their fury in attack and steadfastness in defense, and are universally acclaimed as the most tactically flexible of all aspects. In the war councils of the craft worlds, there's even a saying, "An army without Dire Avengers is like a warrior without a heart." Throughout Eldar history, Dire Avengers have repeatedly proven their superiority. At the Cho'Gath Delta, representatives of the Sable Helm Shrine stopped Wak Greksh, killing so many orcs that their bodies blocked the river, causing it to overflow its banks. During the liberation of Lidira, the Dire Avengers cleared the jungles from the presence of human settlers once and for all, remorselessly and mercilessly exterminating the population of an entire planet. Over millennia, a vast number of legends had been formed about how the Avengers steadfastly held back nightmarish hordes of demons to allow their allies to escape, or how brave warriors protected the Autarchs from assassins, as well as many other feats of valor. Stories of such heroic deeds have surrounded the aspect of the Dire Avengers since the earliest days of its existence, and continue to emerge thanks to the bravery of contemporaries. The Dire Avengers go into battle armed with distinctive shuriken catapults, which are quite unlike those used by the Guardians of the Craft Worlds. The barrage of shrapnel unleashed by the Dire Avengers is a unique interpretation of death by 1,000 blades, a sentence Cain bestows upon traitors and deceivers unworthy of instant death. Each silent volley of incredibly sharp monomolecular discs is fired with such precision that they effortlessly cut through armor, flesh and bone. The Dire Avengers consider the skill of handling shuriken an art form, and even when they take off their battle attire, they wear civilian clothes outside the shrine, adorned with real discs. Thus, even a seemingly defenseless Dire Avenger is capable of striking an enemy from afar with a single sharp movement, which can sometimes save their life. Such vigilance is a characteristic trait of the aspect of the Dire Avenger, a symbol of their duty to protect their native craft world at all times and their readiness to rush into battle at the first demand. On the battlefield, the Dire Avengers erect a solid wall of monomolecular shrapnel between themselves and the enemy using shuriken catapults. Soldiers in light armor fall by the dozens, and even those clad in heavy armors perish under the mass of cutting discs. The Dire Avengers are endowed with a supernatural understanding of when best to begin a lightning-fast assault following this barrage, and when it is wiser to let the enemy come closer and tear them apart, with brethren specializing in melee combat. As a consequence, given the remarkable qualities of the Dire Avengers, it is rare for the forces of Asuryan not to be built on a solid foundation of them. Exarchs of this aspect possess a fantastic ability to evade enemy attacks. The truth remains unclear whether this is due to their own ability to anticipate the enemy's actions, or it is all in the wisdom of the deceased residing in the spirit stones embedded in their armor. Some exarchs of the Dire Avengers use only one shuriken catapult, like the rest of their squad members, while others take two into war to increase their firepower. Others among them, who are more focused on close combat, wield a dire sword and shuriken pistol or a power glaive in pair with a shimmer shield, an advanced field generator that projects a sparkling protective barrier around the bearer and accompanying warriors. The rune of the Dire Avengers is somewhat larger than that of the Guardians, though it has the same tip, marking the exceptional status of these aspect warriors in the Eldar host, as well as their place at the spearhead of the attack. Among the most famous shrines of the aspect of the Dire Avengers is the Sable Helm Shrine, from which one can deduce that its warriors distinguish themselves by wearing black helmets, and also the Knight's Azure Shrine, who are in constant search of Asuman. The Sunblade Shrine is widely known for its ferocious counter-assaults. About the Dire Avengers from the Silvered Blade Shrine one can tell by the helmets with distinctive black and yellow crests. It is in this shrine that Yvraine, the prophetess of the Whispering God, once trained under the supervision of the Exarch, Larian Starspeaker, who would later become known as the Visarch. He saw great potential in her acrobatic skills and fell into sorrow when Yvraine left the path of the Dire Avenger for the path of the Witch. When Larian later learned that his former student had gone into exile and afterward chose the stage of an assassin and moral monstrosity in the Comora, his spirit was utterly shattered. And although he does not admit it even to himself, it was his warm feelings for Yvraine that led him to deviate from the course set out in life. In an unprecedented violation of traditions, the Visarch left the shrine, handing over leadership to his best students, and followed Yvraine on the dark path she had chosen for herself. Asuman is the first and the oldest of the legendary Phoenix Lords, in essence, the most ancient exarchs from whom the aspects originated. Each of them is known throughout the galaxy as a demigod of battle, endowed with supernatural powers that grant the ability to deceive death. And among them, Asuman is the living embodiment of the exemplary warrior, just as the avatar of Cain is the incarnation of the bloody-handed god. Armed with a sparkling sinister sword and filled with determination and bravery, Asuman has carved his way through the millennia. Wherever he passed, enemies shuddered with horror, and the armies of the Eldar rallied for war. Asuman is called the Hand of Asurian, for he acts as the immortal son of the father and the leader of the Eldar gods. During the fall, Asuman fled into exile with his disciples, abandoning his homeworld to be devoured by the horror of the warp, and founded the first aspect shrine on a desolate planet, which he inhabited along with his kin, who named it Asur in his honor. That was far from a peaceful temple for meditation, but a center of martial arts, aimed at honing mental faculties just as much as physical ones, until they become sharper than any blade. From the shrine of Asur then spread the Asuria, the first aspect warriors, forever laying down the path of the warrior. As with those descending from the path of the Exarchate, Asuman is in some ways immortal. If the hand of Asurian falls in battle, his body and essence will wait until they are discovered by some Asuriani, in whose soul the spirit residing in the armor of the Phoenix Lord finds a resonance. Obeying the call of fate, the candidate sets out in search and, if proving themselves worthy, dons the plate of Asuman, taking his place and thus assuming his identity, so that he may be reborn and fight amongst the living once more. Inspired by the example of their predecessors, many exarchs seek out the armor of Asuman to discover if they are worthy of embodying the hand of Asurian. Asuman is revered as the progenitor of the Dire Avengers, the most noble and vengeful of all aspect warriors. Asuman founded more temples and on more craft worlds than any other of the Phoenix Lords, but soon after he vanished, though tales of his deeds are heard in every corner of the cosmos. Throughout time, kings and demons, and even star gods have fallen victim to his blade. It is said that he fights everywhere against the minions of the great enemy, from the Eye of Terror to the Eastern Fringe. And stories of the valorous and skilled, imposing and unyielding warrior spread even beyond Asuriani culture, seeping into the myths and legends of the younger races. Nevertheless, even in the most fantastical of these tales, it is not so hard to believe, given the remarkable skills of Asuman, which represent the pinnacle of development of the aspect of the Dire Avengers. The Phoenix Lord wears a suit of ancient artifice armor, equipped with shuriken catapults of exceptional power, built into the vambraces. Those who manage to survive the storm of shards will inevitably face the sword of Asur, against which only a few have managed to stand. In this ominous blade, the first of its kind, is set the spirit stone of Asuman's long-deceased brother named Thesis, so that he may continue to fight the minions of the great enemy until the end of time. The Sword of Asur also belongs to the number of artifacts with which it is possible to utterly destroy demons, not just banish them to the warp. The presence of Asuman, as well as the visible demonstration of the methods of war that he personifies, inspires the surrounding aspect warriors so much that they acquire his incomparable tactical acumen. For this reason, the unexpected appearance of the hand of Asurman on the battlefield still instills courage in the hearts of the Eldar across the galaxy, for his coming promises triumph over the enemy. Howling banshees. In the tales of the Eldar, it is mentioned that the crone goddess Morai Heg desired to imbibe the wisdom that was in her blood. Knowing that only one could wound a god, she commanded her daughters to relentlessly follow Cain, to torment him with loud wails. This mournful wail drove Cain into such a frenzy that he began to lose his mind. Promising to free him from this curse, the crow goddess extended her hand, and as soon as Cain cut it off, Morai Heg immediately drank the blood from the veins. Thus she gained coveted knowledge, and Cain acquired the aspect of the Banshee. The Banshee is a harbinger of woe in Eldari mythology, whose cry, it is said, portends such dire misfortune that the soul, in terror, might leap from the spirit stone and plunge into the depths of the immaterium for the amusement of demons. It is no wonder that the howling banshees, being the most terrifying of all aspect warriors, draw inspiration from this mystical creature. This legend gave the aspect of the howling banshees its name, and the creature's scream inspired those who followed this path to create a formidable weapon, the Banshee mask. Since this aspect is predominantly composed of females, their lack of brute strength is compensated by the precision and ergonomics of their techniques. Athletic and agile, the howling banshees are renowned for their hand-to-hand combat skills and their ability to deliver a lethal blow to the enemy before he even raises his weapon in defense. The secret to this lies in the Banshee mask, a ritual weapon equipped with slender psychoacoustic amplifiers that turn mournful battle cries into shockwaves that assault the brain. Such an attack inflicts serious damage to the central nervous system, instilling a sense of extreme terror and causing temporary paralysis. Thus, by crying out in unison, a full squad of banshees can guarantee victory even before engaging in combat. With helmets frozen in a terrible grimace with a central megaphone, and in traditional bone-white garb, the aspect warriors indeed seem like real banshees from ancient legends. Pale ghosts, whose cries full of despair and pain chill the blood. During training in the aspect shrine, recruits are taught not only to fight, but also to unleash in a terrifying scream the anger and sorrow they feel during killing. As a result, filled with terror and psychically amplified, the Banshee's wail becomes an equally effective weapon as shuriken pistols and power swords. When Banshees rush into battle, their fighting turns into a psychoacoustic attack called by the Eldar the soul-shattering scream. The combination of wild cry and esoteric power not only temporarily deafens enemies, but also fills their nervous system with otherworldly energy, which, though not opening a path by the offspring of the warp, is capable of temporarily stunning or even paralyzing victims. While the enemy is still recovering from the sonic impact of the mask, the howling banshees quickly close in on them and bring death with shuriken shots and slashes of power sword. In this they emulate the mythic monster that gave them their name, for the sound of the banshee's wail foretells the doom of all who hear it. Whether it be chaos space marines clad in ceramite armor or massive orcs, arrogant incubi or clumsy imperial guardsmen, any enemy becomes easy prey. Those who turn to flee are mercilessly chased down or killed by shots from shuriken pistols by these banshees. Such is the ferocity speed of the howling banshees that even the other aspect warriors express approval of their combat technique with a restrained nod. Unlike many other aspects whose methods of war can be called secretive or cunning, the howling banshees act in an utterly straightforward manner. Being the swiftest among all aspect warriors, the favorite method of attack by the howling banshees is brutally simple: to run up to the enemy as quickly as possible, performing acrobatic maneuvers if needed to dodge incoming fire. However, they are often transported by wave serpents to be delivered to the front line as swiftly as possible. In any case, their arrival on the battlefield is known to all present, as they herald their coming with a mournful wailing that chills the blood. Some may call such fearlessness foolish, considering their light armour, but the howling banshees care not for the opinions of others, for at the moment they charge into battle, their unfortunate victims are invariably doomed. The elder members of this sisterhood and their exarchs are second in skill only to Jane Zar, the founder of the Aspect. Memories of her teach the legendary lessons of the Phoenix Lord, showing temple warriors how to perform the graceful dance with the sword, how to become swift, and how to use their vocal cords to emit deadly screams. The cry of the exarchs themselves is so piercing that those who hear it are long unable to recover, with the heart-wrenching wails still echoing in their heads, and their reactions remain sluggish even after the paralysis has worn off. Some exarchs swap the Aspect's usual melee weapon for the executioner, a two-handed power glaive with increased destructive power. Others, adhering to certain martial traditions within the shrines, opt instead for mirror swords, a pair of identical blades that weave webs of deadly edges in rotation. The Aspect rune is considered to be a rain of tears, symbolizing deep sorrow for the fact that banshees are used as weapons, stealing souls from those who gaze upon them and turning blood to ice. Among the most famous shrines of the howling banshees, one can name the shrines of the Shrieking Blade and the Ebon Witch. The exarchs of the Shrieking Blade prefer mirror swords, cutting down foes in a flurry of strikes. All howling banshees wear red and bone colour, characteristic of their aspect, however. A warrior from the Ebon Witch shrine dons black armour. Lord of the Phoenix, the Storm of Silence, Jane Zar, she is a true whirlwind of silver blades, the fastest, deadly fighter among all that the Eldar race has ever known. She is the matriarch of the Howling Banshees and an idol for all who follow her teachings. In every shrine dedicated to her across the galaxy, candles are lit for her return. When Asumen raised the initial Aspect warriors, he became the first of the Asuria, the children of Asurian. The first to come to learn from Asumen was Jane Zar, the fervent Eldar warrior famed for her speed and ferocity. She and her brethren in arms assimilated the lessons of the Master well, and having accepted the mantle of the Asurian, they set out to spread their own combat techniques among the stars, establishing shrines of the Aspect warriors. It was during this period that the first Aspects were formed, inheriting the distinctive traits of their founders. As the Phoenix Lords dispersed through space, majestic shrines were erected aboard the craft worlds to ensure that the skills of the Asurian would be preserved forever. From the day her training ended, Jane Zar has travelled extensively through the webway, enhancing the skills of her followers and enticing new Asurians to the path of the warrior. Soon, centres practicing her combat methods appeared on each of the largest craft worlds, and she continues to visit them to this day. Among the Phoenix Lords, Jane Zar is the most closely bonded to her spiritual successors, and thus, even if she disappears for entire ages, special vigils are held in the shrines dedicated to her in case the stern lady returns. The astonishing speed and explosive temperament of Jane Zar are reflected in her daughters, the Howling Banshees, named so because she was the first to perfect the technique of the silent scream, a psychic sound attack produced by a special mask to not just stun the enemy, but also turn their brains to mush. This lethal cry has been heard across the galaxy, including by the immortal servants of the dark gods who, it turns out, can also know fear. Jane Zar is the most active among the Phoenix Lords in the war against the great enemy. She has led hundreds of howling banshees in countless battles and even assembled armies from them across several craft worlds when deemed necessary. Always at the forefront of the attack, she wields the Blade of Destruction, a long and elegant glaive crafted in the distant past. With this polearm, Jane Zar easily cleaves through enemies, sweeps wide arcs, blocks counterattacks, and uses it as a pole. With a single flick of the wrist, she sends into battle the Silent Death, a boomerang in the shape of a Triskelion, whose sharp blades were forged in the warp. Thus, as the Silent Death gracefully spins through the air, leaving behind decapitated corpses and returning to its mistress, its blades burn with a black otherworldly flame. Watching Jane Zar in battle, performing graceful pirouettes and leaps with her glowing glaive, is akin to watching a peculiar dance that does not cease until the Phoenix Lord alone remains standing. No other Phoenix Lord has embraced the position of the recently risen Inari as much as Jane Zar. She has spoken passionate speeches about the hope placed in Enid and has repeatedly come to the aid of Yvraine and her supporters since their first meeting aboard Biel-Tan during the fracture. In all spheres of life, the Dark Reapers are guided by the philosophy of the Phoenix Lord Malgan Ra, the most somber harbinger of doom among the Assyrians. Malgan Ra preaches that the kiss of death can be delivered from afar, exquisitely and with utmost efficiency. This is the creed of the Reaper. The Dark Reapers are the most formidable among the aspect warriors. Though their skull-faced masks are unsettling in their own right, the Eldar see in them a far more gruesome meaning than merely death. Dark Reapers embody the god of war in the visage of a destroyer, and their daunting battle suits are imbued with the regalia of their forefather, the Reaper of Souls. The armors of these ominous warriors are crafted in midnight hues and are cold to the touch. They are made from many overlapping plates, providing reliable protection and impressive stability when firing heavy weapons. Such a combination of durability and stability makes Dark Reapers somewhat slower in attack compared to other shrine representatives. However, this plays no significant role, as their primary purpose on the battlefield is to provide long-range fire support. The sacred weapon of a Dark Reaper is a missile launcher with a long barrel, creating a firestorm with a single salvo of small projectiles. A star swarm, unlike the indiscriminate bombardment characteristic of other races. It's more a pinpoint shot, aimed straight at the enemy's heart. The armor-piercing missiles it fires are powerful enough to take down all but the most heavily protected foe. Dark Reapers take pride in their accuracy, devoting a significant part of their training in the Aspect Shrine to achieving perfect hits. Through grueling battle rituals, every student is expected to demonstrate an incredible level of coordination, focus, and equilibrium. Their maniacal resolve significantly shapes the image of Dark Reapers as stern and resilient soldiers, whose terror-inducing gaze covers the entire battlefield. The already impeccable skills of the Dark Reapers are enhanced by a built-in, recoil-absorbing manipulator in their backpack. Advanced auditory sensors and rangefinders on the helmet track any fast-moving targets and collect telemetry data on the battlefield, making it nearly impossible to evade the deadly volleys of the Reapers. They can easily take down even supersonic targets, as if they were mere slow-moving prey. For particularly challenging shots, the Aspect Warrior uses a complex mental link, allowing them to literally see from the barrel of their weapon. Hence the saying, "Where the Reaper's gaze falls, there blooms the flower of death." Exarchs of the Dark Reapers are true masters of their craft, infallible marksmen who have spent time equivalent to several human lifetimes, perfecting their shooting skills. Following in the footsteps of Malgan Ra, many have mastered a wide arsenal of ranged weapons, giving them a tactical advantage. Therefore, it is far from rare when someone opts for a shuriken cannon or the common Eldar missile launcher instead of the standard Reaper launcher system. Regardless of their equipment, the Dark Reaper Exarchs are famed for sometimes not missing a single shot during an entire campaign. As such mistakes are long remembered, for upon their return to the shrine, they must atone for their faults. The rune of the Dark Reaper's Drellith symbolizes a scythe reaping the living. It is inverted on purpose, thereby carrying a hidden allusion to suffering, cruel intentions, or extraordinary abilities. Known shrines: Shrine of the Jade Scythe. Dark Reapers of the Jade Scythe have perfected the art of obliterating as many foes as possible in a single application of overwhelming firepower. Where their warriors take to battle, the ranks of the enemy fall in droves in the face of their sinister economy of force. Shrine of the Three Deaths. The Shrine of the Three Deaths seeks to eradicate its foes from all planes of existence. To slay the foe in real space is to them merely one step on the true path of destruction. Even the Drukhari with whom they often associate hold a certain respect for their commitment to total annihilation. A sinister shadow looms over Malgan Ra, the Harvester of Souls. Wherever the strands of fate may lead the Phoenix Lord, the cries of the dying can be heard nearby. With the Mogatar resembling a vast scythe at the ready, he shoots precise bursts of shurikens, filling the space with razor-sharp discs that slice the enemies to pieces. Altansar was among the many artificial worlds that survived the fall. It avoided the psychic shockwave that destroyed the Eldar kingdom, but eventually got caught in the gravity well of the Eye of Terror. Although the Azurians of Altansar bravely fought against the incursions of chaos, they could not escape their inevitable fate. 5 centuries after the Great Catastrophe, their entire craft world was dragged into the Immaterium. And the only one who managed to escape was the Phoenix Lord Morgan Ra, the Harvester of Souls, the most renowned of his homeworld's exarchs and the founder of the Dark Reapers aspect. As Asurman taught his kin the art of war, Morgan Ra, who created bizarre occult weapons in his quest to learn how best to kill a victim before they had the slightest chance of striking back, kept apart from the rest. He preferred dark and ominous artifacts that resisted precise classification. As he honed his skills, Morgan Ra discovered that even the most unusual weapons could be used with the precision of a scalpel. This discovery, as well as mastering all aspects of ranged combat, helped lay the foundations of the Dark Reaper aspect's philosophy and create the Maugatar. This weapon, crafted in the form of a scythe, is a modification of the shuriken catapult, which fires discs large enough to decapitate an entire row of enemies at once upon a mental command, allowing for immediate withdrawal. And the curved blade at the end of the barrel fits the fearsome reputation of the Mogatar perfectly. Rumors suggest that Morgan Ra, who escaped the dire fate of his craft world touched by darkness, has been followed by that same darkness ever since. However, Morgan Ra himself does not dwell on this, preferring his deeds to speak for themselves. At Stormvold, he alone prevented a Tyranid Hive Fleet Leviathan from passing through the Webway Gate. Yet despite the deeds performed for the protection and survival of the Eldar race, this Phoenix Lord still instills fear in his kin. 10,000 years after the craft world of Morgan Ra was sucked into the Eye of Terror, this nightmarish whirlpool spat out into reality legions of chaos of unprecedented scale, leaving behind a gaping hole in space where real space and the warp merged. While this rift was open and the armies of the netherworld poured out, Morgan Ra dared to plunge into this abyss to seek out the remnants of his lost people. During his long wanderings, Morgan Ra indeed discovered the missing craft world. It turned out the Altansar was still alive, and Morgan Ra brought what remained of his world out of the Eye of Terror, then led them to war against the forces of destruction to thwart their plans. Nevertheless, at the subsequent military councils following the return of Altansar, none of the autarchs of the other craft worlds were pleased with the long-lost kin. And although the allies of the Phoenix Lord fought valiantly without a doubt, they remained aloof and caused unease, speaking only in whispers. Even they, albeit not in the presence of Morgan Ra, wondered how it was possible for living Eldar not to be touched by the corruption of chaos, considering the millennia they had spent in the Eye of Terror. Given the suffering endured by his people, no one harbours the same hatred for the dark gods as does Morgan Ra. But if Fuegan is ablaze with anger, the Harvester of Souls remains cold as the grave, not showing his feelings. The opening of the Great Rift provided him ample opportunity to reap a bloody harvest among their sworn enemies. The Maugatar weapon of Morgan Ra, the Phoenix Lord of the Eldar, and the first of the Dark Reapers, ominous warriors whose destructive weaponry unleashes a deathly whirlwind upon their foes, and the Maugatar, the epitome of their power, a formidable shuriken catapult equipped with unmatched firepower and a flawless blade. A triumph of brutality, capable of being either a hammer or a scalpel in the hands of Morgan Ra, bringing silent death to a single soul or bloody doom to many. The Maugatar fires unusual shurikens, so sharp and large that they slice through scores of enemies only to disappear and evaporate as if blood in fire. Therefore, many believe that the weapon of the Phoenix Lord was created in another world, although those who have heard such, the Bone Singers, respond with a smirk that the catapult was simply crafted using long-lost superior techniques of their art. Various rumors circulate about the origins of the Maugatar, converging on one point. It was created in forgotten times by Morgan Ra himself. But only the mysterious harlequins dare to recount these legends, sometimes depicting one of them in dance. And usually, the audience witnesses in the performance how Morgan Ra, dissatisfied with plain weapons, decided to create a catapult that gathers the souls of the slain. A weapon worthy of the Reaper, following the image of the god of war himself. Before he could build his mighty weapon, Morgan Ra first needed to gather the necessary materials. Wraithbone touched by death, to craft the body of the cannon, metal tempered by the blood of a god, to form the scythe blade, and the spirit stone of a powerful seer, to saturate the weapon with psychic energy. Morgan Ra's quest took him and a group of his acolytes to a crone world, one of the planets of the Eldari Empire of old that was consumed by the warp after the fall. Once home to billions of Eldari, but now nothing more than shattered ruins, this unnamed world had become home to hordes of gibbering demons, cavorting under the baleful gaze of an impossible black sun. The death-infused wraithbone he took from the planet's world shrine, an ancient repository of souls, was guarded by a mighty keeper of secrets who was drawing the countless spirits from within it, soul by tortured soul, for the delectation of she who thirsts. While his dark reapers fired volley after volley of star-strike missiles into the demon, weakening it, Morgan Ra approached and slew the beast with a single mighty blow before harvesting the black deathbone from the infinity circuit. The Phoenix Lord, accompanied by a lone exarch, then proceeded to the very heart of the stricken world, to a hidden chamber that housed a shard of the bloody-handed god himself, an avatar of Cain. There, Morgan Ra turned on the exarch, sacrificing him and conducting dark rituals to awaken the avatar. As the war god's mortal proxy awoke, Morgan Ra took up a piece of star metal in the shape of a great scythe and thrust it deep into the avatar's heart. The creature's molten blood tempered and hardened the blade, and imbued it with the strength of Cain himself. He unleashed the avatar upon the demons and went in search of his final target. What followed is known in the legends as the Night of Endless Slaughter. Morgan Ra battled his way across the Crone World's surface and through subterranean vaults, slaying the servants of Slaanesh. Countless demons fell to his weapons before he located what he sought, the sanctum of the seers who had guided the people of this world to their deaths. He discovered that these wretched beings were still alive, if that could be called living. Desiccated, motionless mummies, still possessing terrifying psychic power, unleashed summoned beasts and magical flames upon the Phoenix Lord, but he killed all their minions, walked through the fire, and strangled the sorcerers one by one. It is said that this fratricide tore Morgan Ra's soul in half. Having taken the spirit stone from the dried-up corpses, the Phoenix Lord left the cursed world and returned to the light of the peaceful stars. Not a single bone singer would dare to craft a weapon that reaps souls in the name of the blood-handed god. So Morgan Ra set out to master the art of weaponry himself. He sneaked into the craft world Kinshara and kidnapped the bone singer Caleth, considered the greatest in the entire galaxy. For many years Morgan Ra forced him to reveal all the secrets of the craft, and the bone singer taught him with a heavy heart, knowing that the fruits of Morgan's labours would not be greatness or beauty, but death. Finally, having learned enough, Morgan Ra blinded Caleth so that he would not see the weapon being created, tore out his tongue so that the master would never speak of it, and cut off his hands so that no greater weapon would ever be created. Then the Phoenix Lord began his great work. Morgan Ra grew from the Wraithbone a great shuriken catapult, whispering with the voices of the dead. He inserted the soul stones of slain seers into its heart, so they would eternally weep in pain. Lastly, he affixed a fearsome blade to spread death everywhere, and so that the scythe that drank the blood of gods would never thirst. Only Morgan Ra knows the hidden truth in the legends, but no one dares to ask him. Sometimes harlequins look into the hall and see the ominous Phoenix Lord watching, always looking only at the servant playing his role. When the dance is over, silence falls, and the Reaper nods, disappearing into the darkness again, going to bring death to the enemies of the Eldar. The aspect of the fire dragon is named after a mythological monster from Eldar epics, a serpentine, fire-breathing reptile embodying unbridled destruction. All warriors of this aspect are distinguished by unparalleled aggression and martial prowess, aiming for nothing less than the total annihilation of foes. They are unmatched masters of weapons based on the application of heat or flame and derive wild pleasure from witnessing the devastation they create. Such is their unity with the element of fire, that it is said their exarchs are enveloped in a blazing halo when seized by the thirst for killing. In the aspect shrines, each initiate undergoes a great number of arduous trials and dangerous rituals to hone their abilities and master the methods of warfare that will be useful if they have to stand in defense of their homeworld. Thanks to rigorous training, every fire dragon can determine at a glance where the target's most vulnerable point is for their weapon and what is needed to bring down even the sturdiest building on those hidden inside. Such an expert assessment goes beyond simply studying some constructive principles and is more connected with an intuitive understanding. It is said that the exarch of the fire dragons intuitively knows the easiest way to destroy a tank with a single shot, even if he has never seen it before. The ritual weapon of these warriors, known as the fusion gun, can turn armor impenetrable by other means into a cloud of superheated steam in an instant. Fusion weapons cause hypervibration of the target's molecules, leading to the generation of such an amount of heat that the target ignites, then melts and evaporates. With their help, the fire dragons are able to deal with any enemy, and yet they are well aware of their primary task among the forces, which consists of the absolute annihilation of the most powerful war machines and the destruction of impregnable defensive positions. Against hordes of lesser foes, such as the countless green-skinned tribes or the screeching creatures of the hive fleets, the accuracy and power of the fire dragon's weapon are not particularly useful, and as a consequence, they are unable to inflict such losses on the enemy to change the course of battle. However, their assistance in combat against elite units is invaluable. In particular, these aspect warriors have taught space marines as well as tank drivers of the Imperial Guard and the Tau Empire through bitter experience that the appearance of the fiercely painted fire drag. To increase their chances of destroying a designated target at the right moment, fire dragons often turn to the grav tanks, which help them get closer to the enemy before it can escape. Thus, they strike swiftly and harshly, while the anti-infantry defense mechanisms of their transport deter the foes. If the Eldar army needs to suppress an enemy fire point or breach a fortress, the Autarch once again relies on the fire dragons, as their arsenal includes melter bombs cleverly attached to fortifications or mechanical leviathans and detonated remotely at a word. From the white-hot fury of the fire dragons there is no escape anywhere, for even the most powerful fortifications or thick ferrocrete walls can hold them off for no more than a few seconds. But truly gifted in this art of war are the exarchs. Many of them, following the example of Fuegan, go into battle with the fire pike, the effective range of which significantly exceeds that of the standard fusion gun used by the exarch's subordinates. Others prefer the dragon's breath flamer, perfectly suited for facing a horde of infantry, to dealing with which the dragons are generally not adapted. Unleashing it just once, an exarch is capable of clearing a small area of enemies, which is useful when seizing positions or defending. The horned rune of a warrior with a dragon's tail is a symbol of a destroyer on the hunt. The fire dragon's rune has long been associated with the overthrow of tyrants and the smoky wastes left where these aspect warriors have passed. Known shrines: the Blazing Fang Shrine. The Blazing Fang pierce enemy armor with focused blasts from their fusion guns. Should a vehicle survive the initial assault, the warriors deliver a payload of melter bombs into its glowing wound, finishing the job in a huge explosion that sends gobbets of molten metal in all directions. The Burning Wing Shrine. The aspect warriors of the Burning Wing rarely enter battle without wave serpent support, enabling them to visit swift destruction upon foes anywhere on the battlefield. The Red Worm Shrine. Exarchs of the Red Worm make heavy use of flamers to reduce masses of the foe to glowing embers. As the Asuryani wandered through the galaxy, Fuegan built shrines of the fire dragon in the artificial worlds of warrior aspect, focused on the complete destruction of the enemy leaving no doubts about its demise. Fuegan taught his students the art of wielding fire and flame, showing them how to summon and tame the dragon's power. He hoped that the Eldar could bring harmony through selective destruction, ceasing to regard absolute nothingness as a natural force that only causes discord. Fuegan, a mighty Asuryani hero, often depicted clutching cosmic serpents of wisdom and entropy. Where he steps, whole worlds burn to the ground, for the dragon in Eldar mythology is associated with the element of destruction. Under Fuegan's fiery gaze, the skins of those fools who dare to approach him without due respect blister. Others who invoke his true wrath are turned to ash in seconds. In many ways, Fuegan most accurately embodies the aspect warrior's obsession with their craft, for he entirely dedicates himself to the methodical and total annihilation of the Elder people's enemies, mercilessly eliminating them one by one, until an unbreakable chain of retribution stretches across the galaxy from their death. The Eldar believe that with it, Fuegan intends to bind the dragon at the end of times, which will grant him power over destruction itself. The same legends claim that the Burning Lance will be the last of the Phoenix Lords to fall in the final battle of Ranadandra, when the Earth's crust will split open from the steps of demonic kings and demigods. After the demise of the planet Asur, Fuegan vanished for centuries and only reappeared in the final battle for Haran Shamash, a world filled with blood and tears, where fighting alongside Eldred Ulthran, he eradicated 24 demonic lords with the fiery spear from which he received his name, and slew a further dozen with his runic axe. The wounds inflicted upon him by his enemies only spurred on the Phoenix Lord, and as the conflict escalated, he grew only stronger, his attacks more ferocious, until the last enemy was dispatched to the afterlife. Once the war concluded, Fuegan dissolved into the webway, and since then he has roamed its ancient tunnels, appearing in reality only when it serves his noble goal, tracking down the enemies of his ancestors and turning them to ash and smoke. Recently, the flame of the Phoenix Lords burns brighter and more often than ever before. The striking scorpions possess all the lethal attributes of their namesake creature, being the most hidden and dangerous among the aspect warriors suited for close combat. Each of them knows how to draw strength from the darkness and anger that once burdened their souls, keeping fear as their closest ally. They are merciless killers to a one, relishing only in the hunt and the slaughter of their prey. And the most sinister of their qualities, acquired from their Phoenix Lord Karandras, is the ability to blend with the shadows, allowing them to approach their enemy as closely as possible before unleashing their unbridled fury. The persona of the shadow hunter Karandras is cloaked in mysteries, with the horrible deeds and terrible secrets associated with him barely touched by the light of truth in the twilight of history. Regarding the past of the most enigmatic of the Phoenix Lords, very little is still known, but the most ominous legends about his aspect concern his predecessor Aura, the father of scorpions, whose character was always to betray those closest to him. According to the tales, Aura succumbed to the darkness that seized his soul, and now emanates the black light of chaos. Their heavy armor deprives them of speed, unlike their howling banshee sisters, so the striking scorpions rely primarily on stealth. To approach their prey closely, they cautiously move through dense terrains, utilizing every available cover. It is said that awaiting the moment their quarry loses vigilance, they are ready to lie in ambush for many days without stirring once. When that moment arrives, the striking scorpions attack swiftly, firing from shuriken pistols and employing screeching chain blades with diamond teeth that chew through armor and tear flesh. Such a combination of patience and bloodthirstiness has doomed countless enemies who turned away from thorny areas even for a moment. Their characteristic attack is carried out with mandiblasters, small lasers situated on the sides of the helmet, delivering deadly stings in close combat. Activated by a mental command, they unleash a barrage of needle-thin projectiles that serve as conduits for a highly charged beam. The enemy has no time to recover after the sudden appearance of the aspect warriors, as they open fire with their mandiblasters and, capitalizing on the success, unleash a flurry of strike. Sometimes This is enough to rip the heart out of an enemy army. In many conflicts, striking scorpions have unexpectedly emerged from hiding and thrown themselves into the thickest of the enemy ranks, changing the course of battles and routing adversaries. Such is the threat from those lurking in the shadows that even the mention of an attack by the Asuryani is enough to make the most composed soldiers flinch at the slightest movement, for they are well aware that they could be attacked from the darkness at any moment if the opportunity arises. Being true masters of concealment and slaughter, striking scorpions rightly instill fear even in the best defenders, but the greatest terror is inspired by the exarchs. These ominous figures surpass in skills those they lead into battle and employ even more devastating equipment. Wielding a giant chainsword known as the Scorpion Chainsword, an exarch can cleave opponents in two with a single swipe, while the legendary Scorpion's Claw can pierce the armor of a Tau battlesuit. The Scorpion rune depicts a slowly creeping assassin and a sudden attack, indicating two aspects of war perfected by the striking scorpions. It has a hidden dark meaning in Eldar mythology, but the aspect, warriors still wear it with pride. The mantra of the striking scorpions: peace is disturbed, harmony gives way to discord, only war remains. And now we don ourselves in the raiment of bloody Cain as true warriors. The iron skin of Cain we wear for battle, whilst inside the fire burns. The iron blood of Cain, from which we draw our strength, grows within us. War looms for us, we carry its dark burden on our broad shoulders, stand before Cain, confident in our calling, free from all doubt and fear. We do not flee from death, we walk in the shadows of Cain, proud and fearless. We strike from the darkness like a swift scorpion with a deadly touch. Look not with the eyes alone, but let the rage spill forth. Allow Cain's gift to spur you on. Famous shrines: the hidden strike shrine, the obsidian claw shrine, the stinging shade shrine. Karandras, the most enigmatic of all the Phoenix Lords. Nobody knows where he initially trained. Perhaps in a shrine on one of the lesser artificial worlds that survived the fall, but soon perished. Or maybe not in the material universe at all. Karandras speaks very rarely, and never of his origin. But he needs only slightly alter his stance to convey a deadly warning, for his very presence exudes threat. Whether an Eldar or a member of another race, few have seen Karandras and lived to tell the tale, and thus the mysteries surrounding him remain unveiled. Karandras is not the eldest exarch of the striking scorpions. That honor belongs to Ara, the father of scorpions, who was always the most sinister among the Asuryani and degenerated into a fallen phoenix, burning with the dark flame of chaos. Karandras took Ara's place after his treachery and tempered the murderous nature of his predecessor with the patience of a hunter. In the ruined sections of the webway, whispers tell that Ara is still alive and has escaped to the darkest corners of Eldar civilization to teach his deadly doctrine anew. Persistent rumors also suggest that rival Phoenix Lords fought for weeks among the ruins of Xandros for the right to enter the Shrine of Slicing Orbs and unlock its secrets, with only one emerging from the fray with their soul intact. As with many other secrets associated with the Scorpions, the truth remains hidden from mortal eyes. Although Ara left an indelible mark on the combat methods practiced by the striking Scorpion aspect, it was Karandras who laid the foundation for the principle of the patient hunter, revered today in this school of martial art. The striking Scorpion's detachment, set on the path by Karandras, is ready to lurk in the darkness, motionless and even breathless, to wait for the perfect moment to strike at the heart of the enemy. The Phoenix Lord himself has mastered this tactic to an extraordinary level. Clothed in armor, he can lie in ambush for decades, hiding in the twilight layer of the webway until the Eldari require his help. When it seems all is lost, the Shadow Hunter emerges from legend into reality, along with ritual weapons, ready to annihilate enemies. Time and again, Karandras appears from the most unexpected direction, and, firing from a shuriken catapult mounted on his claw, quickly closes the distance to the enemy. Karandras excels in close combat. Charging into melee, he employs an advanced mandiblaster known as the Scorpion's Bite. This built-in helmet weapon, discharging a tiny but lethal sting at close range, moves too fast for the eye to follow. As the victim recoils, Karandras lunges, tearing them apart with his mighty claw and a chainsword with diamond teeth. Many of those who perish by his hand don't even realize the terrible fate that has befallen them, as the Phoenix Lord vanishes into the darkness as swiftly as he appears from it. Eventually, Karandras was born from the shadow, and it remains his steadfast ally to this day. After the fall, the Eldar found themselves scattered and leaderless. Decadence and hedonism had undermined any semblance of order they had, leaving them with virtually no knowledge of how to defend themselves. The survivors became prey to slaver races, were driven from place to place, and stood on the brink of extinction. Finally, there emerged a group of heroes who could stand against the enemies of their race. They were the Phoenix Lords, as told by the inhabitants of the craft worlds. They were so named because it was believed that these warriors were reborn from the essence of dead gods. The first among them was Asur-men, but soon others followed, including Archu himself. The heroes fought for the good of their people and taught others to defend themselves. Each of them had their own followers who devoted themselves to a certain style of combat. The warriors of Asur-men were swift and deadly accurate. The killers of Morgan Ra harvested souls from afar, while the followers of Archu learned to use the true gift of fury and silently approach their victim using the shadows. Ara taught his followers how discipline helps to direct anger, how to draw strength from rage and strike with its help, and soon no one could stand against the scorpions of Ara, among whom was his greatest pupil, Karandras. At a certain point, succumbing to chaos and allegedly desiring power, the fallen Phoenix turned against the other Phoenix Lords and led to the first shrine on Asa hordes of demons, which the Eldar could not cope with. Only one place remained untouched, the inner sanctum of the shrine itself, protected from demons by the power of two Eldar gods, Cain and Asurian. Ara himself fled into the webway, where he began preaching his twisted teachings, becoming the progenitor of the Dark Eldar Order of Incubi. In the craft worlds, it is rumored that deep, irreconcilable differences existed between Ara and the other Asurians. The Phoenix Lords preached discipline and caution, the preservation of the Eldar race's core in the craft worlds, and slow recovery. They foresaw that in the future, passions inflamed by war might destroy what remained of the Eldar. Like in many other things, the inhabitants of the craft world saw in the thirst for bloodshed and senseless violence the gates through which chaos could penetrate the souls and doom them to destruction. Therefore, the aspect warriors learned to adopt a certain guise. The aspect of war that shields their souls from slaughter and prevents them from developing a taste for it. However, what Ara believed remains a secret now known only to his followers: the Incubi. As told by the Incubi themselves, the Asurians disagreed with Ara's methods, for they wanted the Eldar to learn to adopt the role of a warrior and to be able to step in and out of it as if donning or doffing a cloak. They also wanted to abandon the people of Comora and fight only for the craft worlds. Ara understood that a prolonged war with chaos required all peoples to be truly devoted to it, and he did not wish for pitiful compromises for the sake of a few. He refused to accept the ideals of other heroes, and going his own way, founded the first shrine of the Incubi, where adherents gathered, and he tested whether they were worthy. He killed all those who were weak and corrupt, and trained only those endowed with enough ferocity to stand before him in discipline and the art of combat. Wherever a threat of chaos arose, Ara always opposed it. It is said that in his last battle, Ara fought alone, tirelessly for many days and nights. Other heroes did not come to his aid, and in the end, the dark light of chaos pierced Ara's heart. What returned to the shrine later bore Ara's likeness, but blazed with unholy fire, instilling terror and madness in the disciples. Just when it seemed all was lost, they heard their mentor's voice from the flames. He ordered them to gather all their fury and confront him, for this was the ultimate test of their skills. And such was their dedication that they complied despite their fear. They defeated Ara's defiled mortal shell and tasted his untainted spirit, absorbing it into themselves, so that Ara's teachings could be preserved forever. The truth that lies between the legends of the constructed worlds and the myths of Ara's shrine is unknown to anyone. Both sides agree that he fought against chaos and did not withstand it, but they diverge on what happened afterward and how it all ended. Since then, many legends about the Dark Father of the Incubi have circulated, and most of them are false and contradictory. Although Ara was long believed to be dead, many continue to believe that he was still alive. Moreover, some claim that a well-known Drukhari swordsman named Drajar is the embodiment of Ara. However, at the end of the 41st millennium, Karandras, the bravest and most cunning of the members of his former shrine of the Striking Scorpions, tracked down his old teacher among the cursed ruins of Xandros, and there engaged him in a fight that lasted 17 exhausting days. Both warriors fought breathlessly until Karandras eventually dissolved into a small patch of shadow and disappeared, thereby driving Ahra into a frenzy, forcing him to slaughter his disciples and draw upon himself a greater curse. Soon, a swift conflict flared up among several artificial worlds after once loyal aspect warriors of the fallen Ara tracked down and killed him. The further fate of the fallen Phoenix remained unknown. In ancient times, the Eldar believed that the spirit of the slain transmigrates into a hawk and soars over the killer as a sign of guilt. And since these wild hunting birds are associated with vengeance and retribution, the swooping hawks took their name from them. Moreover, they mimic their feathered namesakes in many ways. The armor of the swooping hawks is made from an astonishingly light, porous material, while their wings consist of vibrational plates with small gravitational inserts incorporated into them. Due to this, the aspect warriors rise above the battlefield with grace and agility that evokes envy in lesser races. In flight, the mighty wings of the hawks shudder like those of a hummingbird, moving at such a speed that they blur into a smear of colour. Whereas the predatory birds from Eldar mythology merely marked the guilty, the aspect warriors themselves bring death to their enemies. They are capable of soaring upwards in an instant and swooping down on their foes with terrifying velocity. Their sacred weapon is a las blasters, far surpassing the humble lasgun of the Imperium, and a grenade launcher pack with anti-infantry bombs and armor-piercing projectiles for the elimination of artillery. As a result, the passage of the hawks can often be traced by a chain of explosions. The attack of the swooping hawks is an integral part of the Asuryani offensive, as their ability to quickly descend from the skies to any point on the battlefield ensures that even an enemy prepared to meet the main forces will be caught off guard. Moreover, representatives of this aspect are very cunning hunters, often diving to the surface to disrupt a planned counterattack or destroy a vulnerable combat formation. Such tactics of pinpoint strikes quickly exhaust the enemy, putting them in a precarious position. If one raises their gaze and looks for colourful streaks in the air, then ground forces are activated. And if one completely ignores the swooping hawks, they will surely swoop down from above soon. The squads of aspect warriors are led by exarchs, the greatest followers of Baharath. It is they who teach the novices in the shrines the wisdoms of aerial combat, including the aerial jump maneuver, performed from the thick of battle to instantly rise above the field of slaughter and then crush down where their skills are needed most. Their appearance is considered a favourable omen by the Eldar, for they help to uplift the spirits of all who bask in their dazzling radiance. Many exarchs employ the hawk's talon, which possesses superior killing power and range compared to the las blaster. The symbol of the swooping hawk is the rune of the swooping hawks, hinting at a return to a dominant position after a long period of dwelling in darkness and achieving the greatness to which all Eldar aspire. Known shrines. The Ashen Sky Shrine. The Ashen Sky make use of enhanced optics, the better to pierce the battlefield pall from which they prefer to launch their assaults. It is no coincidence, then, that their armour is dark in coloration, a symbolic reference to the tortured skies in which they do battle. The Shimmering Horizon Shrine. To the swooping hawks of the Shimmering Horizon, direction of attack is crucial. Aiming always to have the sun at their backs when they dive from the skies, these aspect warriors strike like the hawk of their aspect's namesake, disengaging their dazzled target before it can return fire. Baharoth the first exarch to master the art of aerial combat and who founded the warrior path represented by the shrines of the swooping hawks across numerous craft worlds. He embodies hope for the Eldar race more brightly than the rest, carrying the slight chance of ascendancy on the edge of his blade. Truly gifted in swordsmanship, shooting, and the boundless possibilities of aerial combat, Baharath mastered the martial arts under the tutelage of a sermon when the memory of the fall was still fresh. At that time he was young and energetic, delighting in how the sun glistened on his wings. Since then he has died and been reborn numerous times. Countless battlefields have known his searing valour, and innumerable enemies have fallen victim to his might. Baharath and Morgan Ra are brothers like the sun and the moon, and many of the Eldar's deadliest foes have met their demise at their blades. Baharath's name translates to the cry of the wind, for he is a true master of flight and high-altitude battles. Although Baharath moves with the speed of the wind, he attacks with the fury of a hurricane. The Eldar consider him a harbinger of unprecedented triumph as he arises over the battlefield in the rays of his own glory. Twisting and soaring in a sky filled with flak rounds, he delivers blinding fire with pinpoint laser shots at those who dare invade his domain, knocking them down precisely towards an unknown grave, that of their comrades. His fleeting shadow is the first and last thing his victims see, for soon after death comes for them from the war-torn heavens behind him. Baharath has perfected the technique of diving within shooting range, unleashing a hail of shots and soaring away on wings to the next prey. Where he flies, the ground beneath him darkens from the dazzling white fire, for the hawk has many weapons of death, and his eyes are so keen that he sees evil everywhere it hides. Often this piercing gaze becomes the only warning for his victims, after which Baharath swoops down like a falcon, unleashing his rage with a haywire grenades. Fiercely attacking the enemy, Baharath strikes with his shimmering sword, aptly named the Shining Blade. Legends say it was forged by the daughters of Vorl in a dying supernova, meaning the blade blazes with the power of a long-extinct star. Those deemed unworthy by the sword, it blinds with their own images, burning them onto their retinas. Having dealt with the enemy, Baharath once again ascends, a birch-blurred spot fluttering over the battlefield. In the Asuriani prophecies it is written that Baharath will meet his end during the Rana Dandra, the final battle between chaos and the material universe, which will result in the destruction of both sides. It is also stated that the cry of the wind will fall in combat with the dark gods, and by his self-sacrifice, forever change the destiny of the galaxy. All Eldar secretly fear that these long-predicted events will occur in their lifetime, creating a sense of impending doom that has been exacerbated by the discovery of the Great Rift. Considering the seer's prophecies, the increased power of the dark gods, and how frequently Phoenix Lords have appeared in recent years, the Eldar's worst fears may very soon come to pass. The Shadow Spectres are a recently rediscovered group of Eldar aspect warriors, who specialize in the deployment of highly mobile infantry-based anti-armor firepower, who are experts at striking at enemy vehicles from concealment and extreme long range. Armed with prism rifles, each a potent anti-tank weapon, and equipped with jetpacks, their mobility allows them to hunt down their chosen targets with the implacable patience of the dead, materializing seemingly from the very air to unleash their overwhelming firepower. The Shadow Spectres represent the elder god of war, Kyla Mensha Kine, in his aspect as the Eternal Warrior, for whom death is no release from duty. It is therefore appropriate that the Shadow Spectre's aspect shrine has historically been associated with the Wraithguard. Traditionally, Eldar who lose their lives in service to the Shadow Spectre's shrine have their spirit stone transferred to a Wraithbone combat walker body. In turn, the Wraithguard have acted as the guardians of the Shadow Spectre shrine for many Terran millennia. The Shadow Spectres are masters of striking at an enemy's heavy armor forces from the unseen, using their jetpacks, prism rifles, prism blasters, and the ghost-light targeting matrix to destroy armoured vehicles from far across the battlefield where retaliation is almost impossible because the Shadow Spectres will be long gone before the enemy can return fire to their location. The Shadow Spectre's use of shimmering hollow fields also makes it very difficult for enemy targeting sensors to get a lock on them, even if they can be visually located. Shadow Spectres normally operate in squads of 3, 5 aspect warriors, not including their exarch. When the Ghost Light is used to combine a Shadow Spectre squad's fire into a single long-range anti-armor strike, it is the Shadow Spectre exarch who makes the determination of target and initiates the attack. Eldar have long forgotten about the Shadow Spectres, considering them another part of their culture lost to ancient cataclysms. Before the return of the Mimeara, there were no active aspect shrines on the artificial worlds, and not a single bone singer knew the rituals for growing their weapons and armor. Shrines were preserved only on the largest craft worlds, but had long been abandoned. During the invasion of Betalis III, the Shadow Spectres fought, and the Mimeara became legendary. When they appeared and disappeared, the hearts of surviving enemies filled with fear. Equipment, aspect armor. Every aspect of the Eldar can be recognized by its equipment and armor, unique to each shrine and worn by many generations of warriors. The helmet is always an important part of the aspect. Donning it becomes the final stage of a warrior's preparation, accepting the mask behind which hides an Eldari. When the helmet is donned, the consciousness merges with the collective martial spirit of the aspect. A spirit stone is embedded in the breastplate of the armor. Other jewels are considered ordinary decorations. Overall, the Eldari highly value beauty, which significantly influences their military equipment, which always meets not just the requirements of practicality, but also aesthetics. Apperceptive hood. The Shadow Spectre's aspect armor incorporates a large armored hood, the exact function of which remains unclear, although from initial reports it is assumed that it collects and disseminates sensor information. It is also theorized that it may contain thought-activated communication systems, targeting data relayed from the Aspect Warrior's primary weapon and the controls for the Aspect Warrior's holofield generator. It has been further theorized by Imperial intelligence that the apperceptive hood may also possess a unique function, which provides the Aspect Warrior with an enhanced proprioception, the warrior's self-awareness of his bodily position in relationship to itself. Sensory information collected by the helmet is fed directly into the warrior's cerebellum, the area of the brain responsible for coordinating unconscious movements, which allows the Shadow Spectre to swiftly move and react without conscious effort. Such enhancement would allow for very rapid and intuitive control over the armor's jetpack. Prism rifle. Rarely encountered by the Imperium before the campaign on Betalis III, the ritual weapon of the Shadow Spectre warrior aspect is the prism rifle. This weapon relies upon the same Eldar weapons technology as that found in the far larger prism cannon, a vehicle-mounted anti-tank weapon carried by the Fire Prism gravity tank. Prism weapons are considered a marvel of design even by the sophisticated technological standards of the Eldar. Jetpack. The jetpack is integrated into the Aspect Warrior's armor. Eldar personal flight devices, masters of anti-gravity technology, include complex stabilization and self-regulation systems, allowing the warriors to mentally change speed and height. Such a level of control provides speed, reaction time, and maneuverability inaccessible to other species. The maximum speed and flight height are currently unknown, as the jetpack operates almost silently, allowing for quiet and effective surprise attacks. Presentient robes, the Shadow Spectre's robes, while seemingly purely decorative, are actually an integral part of this aspect's disruptive holofield technology. These robes incorporate billowing, semi-transparent threads that seem to possess a life of their own. The steamers constantly swirl around the warrior, but somehow avoid becoming snagged and do not impede the warrior's actions in combat. These presentient attributes were hitherto unknown until the Shadow Spectres were encountered by Imperial forces during the campaign on Betalis III, and it is likely that even other Eldar craft worlds do not understand the technologies that animate the Shadow Spectre aspect shrine's strange and unique garb. Insignia. Upon his aspect armor's helmet, the aspect warrior bears the runic symbol of his shrine traced into the forehead, a common practice within all aspect shrines. Other tracery includes a vine pattern, mainly associated with the craft world of Biltan. This example is probably a far older design that has been adopted by that craft world. Some of the runic symbols witnessed being used by the Shadow Spectres on Betalis 3 incorporated other designs that have also been adopted by other craft worlds. Originally, these older symbols were probably in wider use amongst the Eldar. It is believed that this particular rune symbolizes the twisting path of fate, including attributes such as destiny, fecundity, and the journey of the immortal spirit through life and death, the lost phoenix lord of the shadow spectres. Once, Irilith was a pupil of Asurman, the first of the Phoenix Lords, and founded the Shrine of the Shadow Spectres on the craft world Mimera. There are many legends about him, one relating to the fate of the Lost World. It tells of times when, during training with Asurman, Irilith was visited by a dreadful vision of Mimera's destruction by entities that were then only nascent. Still recovering from the near-total annihilation of the Eldar by the Fall, Irilith swore to prevent the extermination of his kin and decided to find the craft world and prepare it for the impending doom. The Shade of Twilight wandered the webway for years in search of lost brethren, spreading its teachings to other craft worlds along the way, but in vain. The legends of the Phoenix Lord from those times tell of great battles against the progeny of Slaanesh, which had crept into the great Eldar labyrinth. When the Phoenix Lord explored an until now unseen branch of the webway, he encountered a greater demon that had burst forth from the warp, intent on killing him. Irilith and the higher demon fought while the minions of the Abyss spawn burned away the protective Eldar runes that bound the gates. It is unknown how long the battle lasted, as time flows strangely in places touched by the warp. But in the end, the Phoenix Lord triumphed and banished the horrendous creature and its cohorts back to Hell. Legends say that, exhausted by the titanic battle, Irilith fell into a deep slumber, during which the location of the craft world was revealed to him. Awakening, the Phoenix Lord found the gates leading to Mimera and began to train its warriors in the ways of war, particularly in stealth, speed, and the all-conquering firepower. But one day, Irilith had to disclose the true reason that brought him to the craft world. The Phoenix Lord told the Council of Seers about the impending doom, but also gave them hope to evade destruction if they strike the enemy before it becomes unstoppable. Bowing to Irilith's wisdom, the Seers allowed him to take almost half of the craft world's warriors. On that day, the Phoenix Lord led them through the same portal from whence he came, heavy-hearted because the vision had changed after his arrival on Mimera. Irilith knew that with his help the craft world would survive, but it would cost him and all the warriors their lives. The Phoenix Lord did not know what awaited the craft world further, but feared it might still perish after such losses. The remaining Eldar ships in the world awaited news of Irilith's and his warriors' victory for years. But after many years, they had to accept that their brethren had undoubtedly died, and the Phoenix Lord had fallen. Irilith was able to eliminate the threat to the craft world, but was defeated in a fierce fight in the enemy's homeland, a place known in the Eldar legends as Bethalmai. There the Phoenix Lord remained lain, his body and armor concealed by the advancing ice over centuries. But Irilith did not die. All Phoenix Lords are immortal. And Irilith was not just a simple warrior, but a conglomeration of all predecessors, whose spirit stone adorned his armor and weapon. And thus, the spirit of Irilith remained in the cave, embracing his last fight, waiting for the day when he would be found and revived again. With the disappearance of the Phoenix Lord, his followers and sanctuaries in the craft worlds began to vanish. Exarchs died one after another in battles. Gradually the shrines were abandoned and became grim ghostly places, shunned by most Eldar, for whom they were just another part of lost culture. Eventually the aspect died out, or so it seemed. The discovery of Bethalmai, known in the Imperium as Betalis III, allowed for the return of Irilith. Bel-Anath, a seer of the craft world Mimera, led the operation to retrieve the spiritual vessel of the Phoenix Lord, while his forces and the Eldar of Alitok held back the Imperial Guard. He succeeded. The Eldars' reward for the Battle of the Encroaching Twilight, as they called the invasion on Betalis III, was the rebirth of Irilith, the Phoenix Lord of the Shadow Spectres. Shining spears possess a pure and bright virtue, making each of them a true hero and champion of their race. In Eldar mythology, there are plenty of examples of valiant warriors and their mounts, and in the shining spears, Those legends come to life once again. In battle, they are like Kaela Mensha Kane's spear, striking like lightning and killing with a single blow. Representatives of this aspect go to war mounted on gleaming jet bikes, whose anti-gravity engines allow them to rush at breathtaking speed even over the most hilly terrain. Such is the concentration and reflexes of the shining spears that when they race through dense jungles or dash among crumbling structures, they do not slow down at all, weaving between obstacles into which lesser skilled riders would undoubtedly crash and spectacularly explode. Each aspect warrior becomes so one with their jet bike that they perform complex maneuvers at high speed, with just the slightest movement of the hand affecting the control handle. Instinctively knowing the absolute limits of their steed, they confidently direct it into vertical ascents or into awe-inspiring spins that not even the most talented pilots of other races can achieve. Such skills are acquired over countless years of training within the aspect shrines, structures so vast that it would take entire days to walk from one end to the other. It is said that while there, the shining spears never leave the saddle even during meditation, and that in flight they sense the ground beneath them, distinguishing the slightest changes in the hum of the anti-gravity engines, thereby capable of steering even with their eyes tightly closed. In battle, their superior abilities to control the jet bike at maximum speed allow them to suddenly dodge and zigzag, making it practically impossible for enemy gunners to aim at them. The ritual weapon of the aspect members is considered to be the laser lance, a long and formidable weapon concealing ingenious devices, releasing a powerful beam at short distance. With this weapon, the rider can inflict devastating damage even before crashing into the ranks of the enemy and mow down the front rows, thereby clearing a path to the intended target. And as soon as the warrior reaches it, with the tip of the lance he delivers a crushing blow, producing a bright flash. Shining spears are renowned for their audacity and insistence of attack. Unleashing a barrage of shots and strikes, they break away from the enemy and turn around for another pass, hardly slowing down for this. Thus, the shining spears are constantly on the move, presenting a perpetual danger to the enemy, which is not so easy to contend with. Few are able to survive their first onslaught, and even fewer those who can endure their exhausting charges that follow one after another until nothing remains of the enemy but charred flesh and broken bones. This tactic is taught to them by the exarchs, the finest aspect warriors whose martial prowess has been forged over centuries, often with bitter experience. Every exarch of the Shining Spears has the right to take to war one of the sacred weapons of their shrine. The Star Lance, a heavier and more powerful version of the Laser Lance or a power weapon, and his Kane's Lance jet bike can replace its catapults for a much stronger shuriken cannon. The insignia used by the Shining Spears represents a warrior's promise with lightning bends on three sides. It promises quick, painful and inevitable death to the enemies of the Eldar, and the aspect warriors gladly keep this promise. Known shrines, the Swift Kill Shrine, the Shrine of the Swift Kill are known for their daring charges, and they wear dark azure helms hearkening to the tale of their lost phoenix lord Drastanta, Tempest of Starlight, and his prized helm, the Crown of the Seventh Sky. The Blooded Blade Shrine. The Blooded Lance frequently ride to the defense of Maiden Worlds under threat of invasion by the lesser races. Just as their Exodite wards slay the great beasts of their homelands, so too do these aspect warriors lay low the mightiest of foes, the Riders of Kane Shrine. Where the Riders of Kane race into battle, the Eldar are swept up in visions of past glories, joining the fight with renewed vigour. These aspect warriors know well that a single devastating charge can both break the foe and bring hope to their allies. Very little is known about the founder of the aspect of the Shining Spears. It is certain that it was Drastanta, 2 generations after the fall, who brought the teachings of the path to the craft world, Saimhan. But in terms of material legacy, perhaps the only thing that remains of the Phoenix Lord is the Celestial Lance. It is said that Drastanta was arrogant and prone to unnecessary fights, which caused him to be late in aiding Asumen during the demon invasion on Asur. Discovering that his mentor had already fallen, notwithstanding against the unholy might of a keeper of secrets named Nukari, the Phoenix Lord attacked it with a cry filled with anger and sorrow, atop the greater demon. The energy of the celestial lance crushed the vile spirit of the beast, and in the end, Drastanta was saved from the fires that engulfed Aesir, while his teacher was not. However, soon after, the Phoenix Lord disappeared among the chaos torn by the War of the Galaxy, and in the centuries that passed since the last battle he partook in, the celestial lance has morphed from one aspect shrine to another, wandering through the craft worlds, so that the legends and teachings of the Shining Spears would not be forgotten. And even if the Elder peoples truly lost their hero, the followers of Drastanta will surely continue to fight in his name. The warp spiders actually take their name from the tiny but aggressive creatures that are seen amongst the slender wraithbone trees of the dome of crystal seers that forms the heart of every Eldari craft world. These sparkling entities can move anywhere within the craft world, melting their arachnoid bodies into the infinity circuit and becoming pure psychic energy before recrystallizing to reappear at a new location. They are attracted in vast numbers to invasive psychic entities. The warp spider aspect. Warriors epitomize the doctrine of aggressive defense. Using a compact warp spider jump generator housed within the backpack of their aspect armor, and operating in squads of 5 to 10 warriors, which are sometimes led by an exarch, these aspect warriors can make short warp jumps, disappearing into the immaterium and reappearing into real space in the blink of an eye. This enables them to make totally unexpected attacks on their foes, though it does necessitate spending a short time unshielded in the Empyrean. For this reason, the warp spiders are considered the bravest of all Eldari aspect warriors. They risk not only their lives in the name of victory, but also their souls, as Slanesh hungers for the souls of all Eldari who dare to enter the realm of she who thirsts unprotected. Despite this accolade, warp spiders are also regarded as strange and terrifying, the furthest removed from the normal Eldari mindset of all the aspect warriors. Warp spiders also tend to have a bleak outlook on life and rarely mix with the warriors from the other aspect shrines. The sacred weapon of the warp spiders is the Death Spinner, a strange high-tech device that releases a cloud of sharp monofilament threads. The magnetic containment field of the Death Spinner twists the cutting threads and hurls them at the enemy. In flight, the compressed bundle expands, and upon contact with soft tissues, it cuts them with frightening ease, severing limbs and mincing flesh. Those who ultimately become entangled in the web of the warp spider aspect are transformed into exarchs. Their duty is to teach and train the warriors of their shrine, and the exarchs approach this mission with all seriousness. They guide their charges through the dangerous and complicated processes behind the warp jumps, explaining how to harden the mind and spirit to survive the nightmares of the immaterium. In battle, exarchs demonstrate themselves as true professionals in handling monofilament weapons, capable of slicing victims into thousands of pieces with a single press of the trigger. Some exarchs are equipped with a pair of power blades to increase their lethality in close combat. Who exactly is the Phoenix Lord of the Warp Spiders remains truly unknown. In the man-made world of Kalor, there exists a curious interpretation of the enigma of the first exarch's identity. Rather than attempting to connect him with a historical or legendary figure, the local warp spiders adhere to the concept of the creator's immaterial nature, which can be called an intriguing interpretation of the ideas of Asurian. The aspect warriors consider the progenitor to be an embodiment of the energy of tiny, crystalline creatures that safeguard the purity of the infinite network of the craft world. This creature is called Lycosidae. The rune of the warp spiders depicts a hunter with multiple limbs who moves invisibly among enemies. The lines radiating from the center also symbolize attacks from different directions and the subsequent death of the foe. Known shrines. The Shadegate Shrine, warp spiders of the Shadegate bear only token flourishes of the red and white of their aspect, favoring all black bodysuits. Draping their foes in cascades of monofilament wire, they will often retreat to hidden positions in order to observe their target's futile and ultimately fatal struggles. The Slicing Skein Shrine, the crimson-clad aspect. Warriors who hail from the shrine of the Slicing Skein are the thread of fate that severs all others. Theirs is the art of the ambush from multiple directions, The cutting of chosen strands that will see entire webs of fate collapse in upon themselves. Aspect warriors known as Crimson Hunters are among the most unusual. Their ritual weapon is neither a blade nor a pistol, but an elegant The Nightshade Interceptor, representing the pinnacle of Azurian aeronautics. These formidable flying crafts, the Crimson Hunters aircraft, are as integral to their gear as the power sword is to the Howling Banshees or the Shuriken catapult to the Dire Avengers. However, their lethality is measured on an entirely different level. There are few Crimson Hunters, but the geography of their shrines is gradually expanding. Their training centers are unlike any other shrines of Kiane. They are neither buildings nor landscape sections, but clusters of transparent cavities connected by tunnels, floating on the periphery of artificial worlds, akin to archipelagos on the continent's border. Inside these realms of captured sky, Crimson Hunters engage in aerial duels, employing their favored weapons, bright spears and pulse lasers harmoniously combined with the fuselage's smooth curves. During such dizzying combat, the fighters' weapons are set to merely highlight, not to strike the target, because a single beam of light can separate victory from defeat. Yet it is said that these aspect warriors can even dodge it, their reflexes being supernaturally swift. The Nightshade Fighter is specifically designed for the pursuit and destruction of any aircraft, even those belonging to the Dark Kin. Therefore, by training nightly with their comrades, essentially the most gifted fighter aces in the galaxy, the proud Crimson Hunters ensure that confrontation with the lesser race's aviation will be an easy task, proving superiority over the sluggish so-called pilots who merely pollute the galaxy's skies. Crimson Hunters embody the ability of the god of war, Cain, to make even a stronger opponent falter and realize their end is near. The Crimson Hunters chase down and shoot enemy aircraft, achieving absolute air superiority. As a result, the enemy's cumbersome army is blinded and reacts to the tactical situation even slower. With precise strikes, Crimson Hunters then prepare it for subsequent annihilation, after which the rest of the Eldar warrior host effortlessly tears the barbaric horde to pieces. The most experienced Crimson Hunters, the Exarchs, possess such unfathomable skills that they rarely miss, even at breakneck speeds. While some of them stick to the same weapons configuration as the ordinary members of the shrine under their command, others replace bright lances with star cannons, increasing their firepower. The rune of the Crimson Hunters represents a blade changing its direction mid-flight, thereby signifying the sudden doom that comes from the sky. Additionally, it symbolizes the bloodied daggers of Cain, coming out of nowhere, so sharp that they can gouge an enemy's eyes out before they have a chance to react. Known shrines. The Bloody Blade Shrine is an Eldar Crimson Hunters shrine, located on a satellite that circles the craft world Alatok. During the Karnak campaign, Alatok's Crimson Hunters were almost completely destroyed in battle with the invading Necron. Afterwards, during Alatok's forces' retreat from Karnak, only the Exarch Keladri Ragifier survived to return to the craft world. The Crimson Hunters may be extremely small in number compared to other shrines, but they are among the most recognizable aspect warriors. We are the hawks of mighty Kurnus. We are the blade that strikes swift and true. We soar upon the winds of war and pierce our prey with talons of flame. Through mastery of the skies do we win mastery of the ground and thus mastery of all. Battle mantra of the Crimson Hunters.